Hi everybody, this is Bonnie with Bonnie Bay Crochet, and today I want to show you how to make the Binne cardigan. This is one of the 18 designs found in my book, Celtic Cable Crochet, and it has been one that's been asked for by many of you, so I've finally been able to put the time together and make this video for you. I need to let you know a couple of things, two things. First off, this is an intermediate level design. So if you're an absolute beginner, you may want to put this on hold until a later date. Now, if you're an confident beginner and you know a lot of the stitches and you want to take your stitching to the next level, definitely give it a try. Just know that mistakes are a way to learn. And the other thing I need to let you know is the yarn used in the original design is no longer available, but I have found an excellent substitution yarn, and feel free to substitute another DK weight yarn of your choosing if you can't find the one that I chose. All right, let's go ahead and get started. For this project, I'm going to be using Berroco's Vintage DK, and I wanted to thank you, Berroco, for your yarn support for this particular design. Just to let you know, this is a different yarn that is used in the original design because the yarn that I originally used has been discontinued. So let's look at some of the stats on this yarn that I'll be using. This is a DK weight, or number 3, or lightweight. This is 52% acrylic, 40% wool, 8% nylon. This is a 3.5 ounce skein, or 100 grams. Each of these has 290 yards or 266 meters. The number that I'm going to be using for the large size will be across the bottom of your screen. Please check the video description for the yarn needs for the other sizes. For more information on the changes that will be needed for the various sizes, I do encourage you to purchase the book Celtic Cable Crochet, where you'll find all the information that you need, and I will try to point in that direction when the numbers that I'm working with is going to be changing. For this project, I'm going to be using 2 crochet hooks. I'm going to be using the H or 8 or 5.00 millimeter, as well as the size E or 4 or 3.50 millimeter crochet hooks. This is going to be used later on. The larger hook will be the main hook. Now, in saying that, please be sure to make a small gauge swatch with the hook and the yarn that you'll be using for this so that you know that the sizing is going to work for you. There is also a list of sizes and dimensions in the book so that you can check the pattern as you go. I'm also recommending that you have a yarn needle and a pair of sharp scissors handy. I'm also recommending that you have about 40 beads, which are size 6, should you want to add the beads to the neckline. As a quick note, as we begin to work this design, one thing I encourage you to do is to make a copy of the pattern from the book, or you can just circle with a pencil or other writing utensil. And what I have found helpful is to circle the number that you're going to be needing for your size. And the sizing is going to be as follows: extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, 1X, 2X. Okay, so I've gone ahead and circled the number that is the large number, and that's where I am going to start. So it's also, again, helpful just to go through the pattern and to just highlight with even a highlighter could be helpful, the number that you're going to need so that you will minimize confusion as you go. To begin, we're going to start with a slip knot. And for the large size, a starting chain of 76 chains. For row 1, we're going to work a double crochet in the 4th chain, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th chain from the hook. I'm just working in the side of the chain, and we're going to work in each chain all the way across. There's no reason really to go the extra effort to work in the back bump of the chain, since we are going to be constructing the sweater and the seams will be near where we are crocheting now. Okay, so go ahead and work a double crochet in each of those chains. At the end of this row, you should have a total of 73 double crochets. That's not including the starting chain. For row 2, I have turned. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to skip the first stitch, and then I'm going to work front post double crochets in each of the next 3 stitches. Just like that. And then a half double crochet worked into the top loops of that next stitch. And that's what we're going to repeat all the way across. And I'll do this slowly. If you've never done a front post double crochet, this is what we're going to do. You wrap the hook, insert the hook. It goes around the body of the stitch instead of through the top loops. Pick up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, just like you would for a double crochet. So again, around the stitch. And we're going to do that 3 times, followed by a half double crochet. And so that's what we're going to do all the way across this row. I'll do it one more time. 3 front post double crochets, followed by a half double crochet. And this may be a good time for me to just pause and say that if I am going too fast for you, I apologize. However, I do have a solution for you. If you are watching from a computer screen, you can look across the bottom. Usually along the right side, there's a little gear-shaped icon. If you click on that, the video has to be stopped in order to do that. Click on that, and then it will bring up a speed playback menu, and you can pick a slower speed and watch the video. If you're watching from a handheld device, usually a phone or an iPad, I believe there are 3 vertical dots in the upper right hand corner. If you click on that, it also brings back a playback speed. This works for this particular video on YouTube, as well as all the videos now on my watch.bonniebaycrochet.com channel. And if you are tired of commercials and you want to watch commercial free with some extra perks, please check out that site. It's in the video description below. You can just click on that link and you can watch ad-free, spam-free, and have the luxury of participating in many other additional activities. Okay, so go ahead and finish row 2. At the end of row 2, work a half double crochet into that last chain. Even though it says to work the half double crochet in the turning chain, work it in the stitch in this particular row. For row 3, we've turned. We're going to chain 2. We're going to skip the half double crochet, and we're going to work back post double crochets in each of the next 3 stitches. Worked very similarly to the front, except we're coming in from the back. The hook goes around the stitch and then out the side door, and pull up a loop and continue the stitch as we normally would. And then a half double crochet in the next half double crochet, making sure that you work the stitch in the top loops. Okay, so I'll do that again for you. This is what we're going to work all the way across. Back post double crochets in each of the next 3 stitches, and then a half double crochet worked into the top loops of that half double crochet. So go ahead and work that all the way across, and I'll show you how the row ends. Row 3 ends by working a half double crochet into the turning chain. So let's turn and see what we have after 3 rows. Now for row 4, we're going to start crossing cables. We're going to chain 2. we're going to skip the first half double crochet and the next 3 post stitches, and we're going to work a half double crochet in that next half double. Those of you who follow my work, you know where this is heading. Those of you who don't, hopefully this will be an easy thing to learn. Okay, so now we're going to work front post trebles. We wrap the hook twice and we work it as we did the other front post stitches. Okay, we just wrap the hook twice and then we complete that front post treble. We do that 3 times. Now working in front of those last 4 stitches, that's the half double and those 3 front post trebles, we're going to front post treble in these stitches and in this order. In the one that's furthest across, that's 1, and then the next one, 2, and the third. After we do that, we have double crochet into the top loops of that next half double, and it looks like this. So the cables have officially begun to cross, and we're going to do this all the way across the row. So let's do that again. Skip the next 3 stitches, half double in the next half double, and I know it's going to look kind of silly for a minute until we get these crossed. Front post treble in the next 3 stitches, working in front of those last 4 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 3 stitches that we just skipped. And then follow that with a half double in the next half double. Let's pause. And so now we have 2 of the cables crossed. So we're going to do that all the way across the row. And again, you're going to skip the next 3 stitches and then start with your half double. So go ahead and work that across. At the end of row 4, we're going to work a half double crochet worked into the turning chain. And so this is what you should have. We should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cables that were crossed in this row if you're doing the large size. All right, so let's turn for row number 5. We're going to work chain 2. We're going to skip that half double crochet, and we're going to work back post double crochets over the next 3 stitches. Now in between the last stitch and the next stitch, this is where the cables were crossed. You should be able to stick your finger in between there. Work a half double crochet in between those 2 stitches. I want to be clear on this. This is not in a particular stitch or around the stitch. It's in between the last stitch and the next stitch that we're going to work. And then we continue with 3 more back post double crochets, 1 over each of those next 3 stitches. And then we're going to skip this half double crochet and then half double in the half double that's in between. Let me just pause and talk a little bit about this. We did add a half double crochet here, and we're skipping a half double crochet, which was worked kind of behind the scenes when we crossed some cables back a row. And therefore that maintains a constant stitch count. Okay, so this cancels mathematically, and then we'll just continue. So I'll do this for you one more time. We're going to back post double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches, half double in between that last stitch and the next stitch, and then 3 more back post double crochets. And again, skipping this half double, and then we work a half double in the top of the next half double, which is going to be in between these two cross cables. So go ahead and work that across the row. Let me show you what it looks like from the other side. Okay, so go ahead and finish row 5. This is what you should have after completing 5 rows. Now for row 6, we're going to chain 2, skip that first stitch, and we're going to work front post double crochets in each of the next 3 stitches. This is very much like row 2 that we worked. Half double in the next half double, and then 3 more double crochets or front post doubles, 1 in each of the next 3 stitches, and then a half double in the next half double. And that's going to be what you repeat all the way across. Front post double crochets in the next 3 stitches, half double in the next half double, and again 3 more front post double crochet. So go ahead and work that across for row 6. Now just to give you a little more clarification, for row 6 we're going to complete it as I instructed, but it's also a repeat of row 2. So in the instructions it says to repeat rows 2 and 3 2 more times. So what we're going to do is we're going to complete this row with the front post double crochets and the half doubles as instructed, and at the end we're going to work a half double in the turning chain now and throughout unless I say otherwise. And then for row 7 we're going to work back post double crochets and those half doubles in between, and again half double in the turning chain. And for row 8 and 9 we're going to do the same. Row 8 is a repeat of row 6 with the front post double crochets, and then row 9 will be with the back post double crochet. So go ahead and work rows 6 through 9. This is what you should have after completing rows 6, 7, 8, and 9. Again, those were just working front post double crochets and back post double crochets. Okay, so now for rows 10 through 15, we're going to repeat rows 4, which is where the cross took place, the crossing of the cables, through 9 once again. So if you need help and you need to look to see what this looks like, I'm going to put a little reference across the bottom of the screen, a time mark where you can go back and review rows 4 through 9 again should you need them. So go ahead and work again rows 10 through 15, which is a repeat of rows 4 through 9. This is what you should have after completing the first 15 rows. Now for rows 16 and 17, we're simply going to repeat rows 4 and 5 again. And remember, row 4 is where we cross the cables, and row 5 is the row that we work after the cables have crossed. If you need to see that again, look again across the bottom of the screen, and I will put a time mark there where you can go back and review rows 4 and 5 again. But essentially it's the same thing that you've already repeated in the repeat of these rows right here. So go ahead and work rows 16 and 17. Now I'm going to try to explain the way the pattern is written here for the varying sizes. Remember, I requested that you go ahead and circle the numbers or highlight the numbers that you need for your size. Okay, so now to give some clarification for rows 16 through 19, notice that it says only 16 and 17. That would be for the extra small size, and that would be the same for the small size. And the medium and the large sizes, it's rows 16 through 19, so that would be a total of 4 rows. And we're going to repeat rows 4 through row 7. I'm going to go ahead and circle that one as well. So repeat rows 4 through 7 for the large size, and of course that's going to vary for the other sizes as well. And you can see the complexity here of why it's important to have the written pattern at your disposal. Okay, so go ahead and work those next 4 rows, which again is repeating rows 4 through 7 for this side. If you need video support, look across the bottom of the screen and I will put a time mark as to when row 4 starts again. And again, that is where the cables are crossed. So go ahead and work those rows. This is what you should have after completing 19 rows. Again, the numbers are contingent on the large size that I'm making. Let's take another look at the written pattern so that I can try to help you understand better. Okay, so we just finished row 19. Okay, now in the pattern it'll say row 18, but in the parentheses we know that with the large size we are now at row 20. So the directions I'm going to give you are going to be for row 20. So now to begin this row, which again, row 20 for the large size, it'll say row 18 for the small and extra small sizes in the written pattern. We're going to work a double crochet and then a half double crochet in the same space. And that is deliberate because what we are going to be doing is continuing to add stitches for a few rows. And I'll show you how to do that. And this is going to form yet another cable on the other side. All right, so and then after you've done those increases in that first stitch, we're just going to work in pattern stitch with the front post double crochets just like we've been doing. Work those in those next 3 stitches and then a half double in the next stitch. And again, front post double crochets all the way across, working them in groups of 3, followed by a half double. So go ahead and work that across the row, and then I'll show you how the row ends. At the end of this row, we are going to work the half double crochet that we normally would work. In addition to that, we're going to work another double crochet and a half double crochet. So let me give you a good view of that. So these are the increases: half double, double crochet, followed by a half double. So now on to the next row, we're going to turn. And for the record, the written pattern will say row 19, and then parentheses, the large size number is actually row 21. So we're going to chain 2. We're going to work a double crochet in that first stitch. Again, we're increasing stitches. We're going to work 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and then a half double crochet into that next stitch. And then we're going to work in pattern stitch across, which would be working back post double crochets in the next 3 stitches, followed by a half double crochet worked into the half double, and then again working that all the way across 3 back post double crochets, 1 into each of the next 3 stitches, followed by a half double crochet worked into that half double crochet. So go ahead and work that across. Again, this is large size 20. It will say row 19 at the very beginning of that row. I'm saying that again and again just to be very clear so that you understand how to read the written pattern. I will show you the end of the row, which will also have additional increases. So for the end of this row, we're going to work a half double in that half double. We're going to work 2 double crochets in the next stitch, and in the turning chain we're going to work a double crochet and a half double. Okay, the pattern does say in the last 2 stitches, that should just say 1 stitch. So again, the ending of this row is a half double, 2 double crochets, and then in the turning chain a double crochet and a half double. The next row is also an increase row. On the written pattern, it'll say row 20, and then in parentheses, the large size will be actually row 22. We're going to chain 2. We're going to work 2 double crochets into that first stitch. Again, we are increasing. And then we're going to work a double crochet and then a half double into the next stitch. Afterwards, we're going to work 2 double crochets into the next stitch and 1 double crochet into the next, and then a half double into the half double. Okay, and then we're going to resume working in pattern stitch, and depending on how many rows that you have worked, depending on the size, will determine, you know, which rows you're going to be crossing on. But let me go ahead and help you with some of that. This is a 6-row repeat, starting with the repeat of row 4, which is where the cables cross, and then row 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so these are 6 rows, rows 4 through 9, that you'll be repeating throughout. And so now we know with this size that it is time to cross the cables again. So we're going to resume pattern stitch in just a second on that. But let me take a look at this with you so that you have this correct as you go. Okay, so now you should have enough stitches here to make a whole new cable like this. And so let's double check with that. We have our turning chain. We have 1, 2, 3 double crochets, a half double, and 1, 2, 3 more double crochets. When we work over these, after we complete this row, we're going to be working with the front and back post cables to create a new cable, just like we've been doing here. I will show you how that works out for the large size, but if you're doing other sizes, don't worry. Just make sure that you are using your visuals and crossing the cables every 6 rows. Okay, so now I'm going to just continue in pattern stitch, which again will be a cable crossing row, which is a repeat of row 4. Skip those 3 stitches, half double, and then we're going to front post treble in the next 3 stitches, just as a little refresher. Of course, if you've gotten to this point so far in the pattern, you should have the pattern stitch well down under your fingers. Okay, so then we cross in front of those 4 stitches by working front post trebles in those 3 stitches that we just skipped. And then follow that with a half double worked into the half double. So go ahead and work this. This again is row 20 in the written pattern, and then in parentheses, this is actually row 22 for the large size. So go ahead and finish that. I will show you how the row ends. After working this all the way across the row, let me show you the ending increases. We're going to work a half double crochet and then a double crochet in that half double. Now we're going to work 2 double crochets in the next stitch. Then we're going to work a half double crochet and a double crochet in the next stitch. Hang with me, I will show you this again. And then we're going to work 2 double crochets in the next stitch. So just to repeat that, we have a half double followed by a double crochet and then double crochet, and then a half double and a double crochet worked in that same stitch, and then 2 double crochets. Okay, that's worked in the stitches so far. Now in the written pattern it does say double crochet in the next 2 double crochet. That is an error, so please mark that off. I apologize for that. This pattern was written more than 10 to 11 years ago, and that was missed by the tech editing, so I just want to apologize for that, and I'm correcting it here as we speak. And it will also be in the written errata on my website, so, and I'll put the listing for that as well. Okay, and then in the turning chain we're simply going to work a half double crochet. So again, this is the end of row, it says row 20, and then in parentheses it will be row 22 for the large size. I'm always giving you the row at the very beginning of the row in the written work so that there's no confusion. So again, you should have the half double and then 3 stitches, half double, and then 3 more stitches, and then the half double in the turning chain, so that you can form another cable just like this. So I'm going to start you on the repeats, and let me give you those numbers. Okay, so the part that I'm reading now is under where it says sizes extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large only. If you're making the 2X and 3X, you're going to need to read the information below that. So for these sections, I've gone ahead and I've circled this group of numbers because, again, extra small, small, medium, large, extra large. This is for rows 21 through 40, it says on this side, which would also be the equivalent of rows 23 through 46. Okay, now doing the math, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be adding 4 new sets, and I'll show you what that means for the large section. Okay, so we're going to work, it says to work in established pattern or a pattern stitch, incorporating cable twist over new stitches on both sides. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. So in a second, I'm going to turn and I will begin these rows with you. But let me show you with these numbers for the large size, we're going to add 4 additional cables. All right. So we're going to work in pattern stitch until we have 4 additional elongated cables, which would mean we'd have a total of 7 total, plus what we started at the beginning. Again, for this size specific demonstration. All right, so in order to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2. We're going to skip that first stitch, and now we know we're going to be working back post, double crochet. So continuing the pattern stitch, we work 3 back post double crochets, followed by a half double worked into the top loops of that half double, and then 3 additional back post double crochets, and then a half double. Okay, so let's stop and turn and see what this looks like from the other side. So you'll see that you have another foundation for another cable, and when it comes time, we will cross this cable just like we cross all of the others. So go ahead and work across this row in pattern stitch, whatever that means for the row that you are on. I am doing a repeat of row 5, which is the row where I work a half double in between that next stitch and last stitch, which is what you do following row 4 when the cables are crossed. Okay, so go ahead and work this all the way across, and I will show you how the row ends and adding in the additional cable on the other side. Coming to the end of this row, we're going to establish another cable by working 3 back post double crochets. I have already half doubled in the half double here, so just like we did at the other on the other end at the beginning, we have 3 back post doubles, a half double in the half double, and then 3 more back post double crochets, and a half double in the half double. All right, so let's turn and take a look at what we're looking at. So just to confirm, we do have an additional cable here and an additional cable here. So what we're going to do at this point is we are going to work in pattern stitch, maintaining the growth of these elongated cables by, again, repeating rows 4 through 9. And it's a visual thing, so you should know where you need to be on this if you've gotten as far as this. So go ahead and do that if you're doing the large size until you have a total, counting these, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 additional elongated cables. And then I'm going to work this to that point, and then I will show you what follows. Again, do be mindful that some of these numbers I'm telling you may differ a bit depending on the size that you're working on. So do follow the written instructions as closely as you can, and I will try to be very specific in giving you the directions. This is what you should have after completing the back section, and like I mentioned before, you should be able to count on the elongated cables 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the completed, and of course there's a beginning, half of a beginning one at the very beginning as well. All right, so now this is the back portion. Now we're moving on to the part in the pattern that is titled Bottom Ruffle. Okay, so this is where we are going to add in additional increases that are going to help create the ruffle at the bottom. All right, so for row 1 of this, and this is for all sizes, we're going to chain 2, and it says to work the first 7 stitches. So we're going to work this is the row that follows. It's actually a repeat of row 5. I'm working on mine. 3 back post double crochets. The pattern says to work the first 7 stitches, so that would be those 3 stitches, that half double in the middle, and an additional 3 back post double crochets. All right, so now we're going to be adding stitches right here. We skip that half double, and in the central, there's a center half double that's in between these 2 cables. We're going to work 2 half double crochets, just like that. And then we continue on into our pattern stitch, just the way we've been working. So that's what we're going to do all the way across the row. Let me go ahead and work one more of these with you. Again, half double in between that last stitch and next stitch, and 3 more back post double crochets. And again, skipping this half double, and in the center half double, we work 2 half doubles. All right. So go ahead and work that all the way across. When you get to the end of the row, which is going to be right here, we're just going to work 1 half double crochet into the turning chain. So go ahead and work that all the way across. For row 2 of the bottom ruffle, we're going to work a chain 2. I'm going to work in pattern stitch over those first 7 stitches. And after we finish that, we're going to work 2 half double crochets into that first half double, and then 1 into the next. So we are increasing gradually. So every time you come to the half doubles, we're going to work 2 in that first and then 1 in the next. So you'll have a total of 3 half doubles between each of the cables. So go ahead and work that all the way across. This is what you should have after completing row 2 of the bottom ruffle. Let's go ahead on to row 3. I'm going to turn, chain 2, and we're going to work the first or the next 7 stitches. We're still skipping that end stitch. We're going to work the next 7 stitches of that first cable, half double in between. Do be sure that you're not adding stitches in between, like in the center of the cables. Make sure that you're adding these half double crochets that I'm going to show you in between the cables themselves. I'll specify with a visual in just a second. Okay, so I'm working the first, or working the 7 stitches of the cable, and then when we get to the place where we're increasing the half doubles, we're going to work 2 half doubles in that first half double, and then 1 in each of the next of those, and that's going to be the repeat all the way across. So let me just go back. I just want to make sure that as you're adding these increases, that they're in between the whole cables, not in the center of the cables. I want to try to communicate that very clearly. We're just continuing to work the cables just the way we've been, but we're just adding the stitches in between. So go ahead and work row 3. This is what you should have after working through row 3 of the bottom ruffle. Now for rows 4 and 5, we're simply going to maintain what we're doing. We are going to chain 2. We're going to work in pattern stitch over those first 7 stitches, and then we're going to work 1 half double crochet in each of the half doubles in between the cables. So go ahead and work rows 4 and 5. This is what you should have after completing 5 rows of the bottom ruffle. Now for row 6, we're going to work in pattern stitch, chain 2, and work over those first 7 stitches of the cable. And for this row, we're going to work 2 half double crochets in that first stitch, and then 1 in each of the next 3 stitches. So you will have a total of 5 half double crochets in between each of these cables. So go ahead and work row number 6. This is what you should have after completing row 6. I should have mentioned beforehand that this was also the time to cross the cable. So when I say working an established stitch, that just means that when it's time to cross the cables, you go ahead and do that. All right, so now for the next several rows, this would be for rows 7 through 13. That's 7 rows. We're just going to work in pattern stitch. So we're not going to cross the cables anymore throughout the end. So we're just going to work over the stitches, the cables in pattern stitch, and then we're going to have a total of 5 half doubles in between each of those cables. So go ahead and work those additional 7 rows. Now for the right front panel, this is the wider panel. You are going to chain 84 for the large size, and then work exactly the same for the first 17 rows as shown. This is what you should have after completing rows 1 through 17. And this is the first row worked, and the last rows are down at the bottom as I explained something. So this again is the right front panel, one of 2. This is the large one. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a stitch marker to the left side of this panel. And this is going to be as if when you're wearing it. So you need to turn and look at the back side of this for just a moment, because as you can imagine, you're going to be wearing it with this side facing outwards. Okay, so I want you to put a stitch marker on the left side. So this is the left side. If you're watching the left-handed version, you're going to have to make sure that you do mark the proper left side of this before going further, because you're going to be doing this a little bit differently, because you're going to be working your increases at the end of the row instead of at the beginning of the row as you make this panel. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to continue working following the directions for the back of the sweater, but we are only going to work our increases on this side of the work. So, and again, that reminder here, put that reminder that you're not to work increases on this side. It's going to just keep you safe for a few rows so that you'll know not to add there, because this is the part that's going to either hang open in the front, or you can pin this part using a beautiful brooch or a a stick pin, or shawl pin of sorts. Okay, so now what you're going to do is I'm going to put a little time mark across the bottom of the screen. That'll take you back to row 18 of the back so that you can remember how to add the increases, but again, on this side only. When you go back to repeat, you are going to see the increases at the end of the rows. Totally disregard that. And of course, when you start the rows, you're just going to be starting as you normally would on these other rows here. Okay, so go ahead and finish the large front panel. So go ahead and finish the wider of the two front panels. After you complete that, you're going to have a narrow panel to work on, and this panel for the large size and for most sizes is going to be 28 stitches. So you're going to start with a chain 28 and then complete rows 1 through rows 17, just like you've done with the back and the wider panel. Okay, after you do that, we are going to work the arm increases only on the left side instead of the right side. So when you get to the narrow panel, go ahead, determine which is the right side, and then you're going to put a stitch marker on the right side of your work, and then you're going to complete the additional arm increases only on the left panel. But again, make sure that you determine which is the right and which is the left before you do that. Okay, so go ahead and complete those two front panels, and then I'll show you what I have. Now I want to show you the wider panel and just show you how the left side of this panel has no arm adjustment. It's just the straight stitching, and how the right side, again, the right side when placed on the sweater, this will be the right side, has the arm adjustment on this side. Okay, I'll go ahead and put a full slide of these two side by side so that you can get a better view of what we're looking at here. And let me show you the narrow side of the sweater. This is the part that's going to go on the left side, and you see how you have the arm adjustment just like you did in the back, but it's only done on the left side when worn. Okay, and how this side stays just straight stitching. All right, so I just wanted to give you a nice view of these two panels, and you'll learn more about how to put these together when we do the finishing touches. I wanted to show you that we're going to be making two sleeves exactly the same, and let me go ahead and give you a vision of how we are going to do these. We're going to start on this foundation area, and then we are going to go up, and every so often, as I will instruct you, you're going to work increases on both sides so that this grows incrementally and evenly up until you get to the part here, and then we're going to add what we call the sleeve cap to the top of this sleeve. Okay, and again, both sleeves are going to be made exactly the same, so do be sure to make two. To begin, we're going to start, again for the large size, I'm going to start with a chain of 37 chains. Be sure to check the written pattern so that you know how many chains to start for the other sizes. After completing my chain of 37, I'm going to start by working a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook and in each of the remaining chains across the row. And this should give us a total of 34 stitches. And that again is not including the turning chain. For row 2, we're going to chain 2. We're going to skip the first stitch and we're going to work front post double crochets over the next 12 stitches. After those 12 front post double crochets, we're going to make the elongated cable motif in the middle of the sleeve, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to work a half double crochet in the next stitch. We're going to work front post double crochets in the next 3 stitches. Half double in the next stitch, and you should be super familiar with this stitch by now, and 3 more front post double crochets. Followed by another half double crochet. Let me pause so that you can take a look at this. This again is the foundation for that beautiful elongated cable. We're going to make all up the sleeve. After that, front post double crochet in each of the remaining stitches, and I'll show you how this row ends. After working those front post double crochets all the way across, we're going to work a half double worked into that turning chain. Okay, now for row 3, we're going to turn and we are going to skip that first stitch. Let's go ahead and chain 2. We're going to back post double crochets, again skipping that first stitch. We're going to back post double crochet in those first 12 stitches. After those first 12 back post double crochets, we come to that half double, and you know what to do. We work a half double in that space, and then followed by 3 back post double crochets, a half double in that next half double, 3 more back post double crochets, a half double and that next half double, and then we're going to work back post double crochets all the way until we get to the end of the row. And when we get to the end of the row, we're going to work a half double crochet into the turning chain. Okay, now we come to row 4, which is our first increase row. I'm going to chain 2. Now when this pattern was originally written, it was to indicate that you work the increase row in the base of the chain 2, which would be right here. I'm going to recommend that instead we work it in the half double crochet. Now the pattern does say to skip this stitch, so you can either choose to work the double crochet in the base of the chain and then skip this stitch, or you can just follow the instructions on the video and put the increase in the half double crochet. It's up to you. I'm going to work it in the half double crochet. I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm making just a minor adjustment, but I'm just trying to respond to anybody who's going to correct me later on this. You can do as you wish. You can follow word for word the pattern. It's been more than I don't know, 8-10 years since I wrote the pattern, so I'm going to work the double crochet in the half double crochet. Okay, just like that. So we have our first increase. We are also going to make this increase at the end of the row, and I'll show you how to do that when we get to that point. Okay, so now we're going to work in pattern stitch by working front post double crochets until we get to the cable section. So go ahead and work those stitches. Once we get to the cable, we are going to go ahead and cross it on the 4th row. We're going to work that half double crochet, and you should know how to do this, but I'll review it just for those who may need some time to review. Skip the next 3 stitches, half double in that next half double, work front post trebles in the next 3 stitches, pause so you know what that looks like. Now we're going to work in front of those last 4 stitches, and we're going to front post treble in each of those 3 stitches that we just skipped. And the cable has been crossed, and let's put a half double in the top of that half double crochet, and just pause and look at this. All right, so now for the rest of row 4, we're going to work those front post double crochets all the way across, and then I'll show you how the row ends. At the end of row 4, we're going to make another increase. So what we're going to do is we're going to work a double crochet and then followed by a half double crochet. So we have increased a stitch at the beginning and at the end of each of this row. All right, so let's turn, and we're going to work row 5. We're going to chain 2, we're going to skip the first stitch, and then we're going to back post. We're going to make sure we take in that very first or the very next stitch, which was that increase stitch, as a back post double crochet, and then we're going to back post double crochet in each stitch until we get to the cable portion. When you get to the cable portion, we're going to work a half double crochet in that half double, 3 back post double crochets. Again, I'm reviewing this because this is video number 2 in this series, and just as a refresher, and then a half double in between that last stitch and next stitch, and then 3 more back post double crochets. All right, skip that half double and then a half double in that next half double crochet, and then we're going to work back post double crochets all the way across the row, and make sure when you get to the end of the row that you also incorporate this stitch as a back post double crochet and then a half double into the turning chain. For row number 6, we are just going to continue in pattern stitch, and let me explain what I mean by pattern stitch. We begin each row with a chain 2, that's part of the pattern stitch. We skip the first stitch, and then we just work front post double crochets all the way across. When we get to the center 9 stitches, that's how the pattern refers to the cable portion, as the center 9 stitches. We're just going to work half double, 3 front post, half double, 3 front post, half double, just the way you've been on the same motif for the entirety of the sweater. And then we complete front post double crochets in each stitch, and then a half double crochet worked into the turning chain. So go ahead and work row number 6. This is what you should have after completing 6 rows. Row 7 is another increase row, so I'm going to chain 2, and just like before, instead of working in the base of the chain, I'm going to work my double crochet in the top of the half double crochet. Again, you can choose whichever method you'd like. And then I'm going to work back post double crochets across until we get to those center 9 stitches of the cable. And when you get to those center 9 stitches, again, half double, and then 3 back post double crochets, a half double in that next stitch, and then 3 more back post double crochets, and then a half double worked into the top of the half double. And then I'm going to finish by working back post double crochets in each of the remaining stitches, and I'll show you how this row ends. Row 7 ends with an increase with a double crochet worked into the turning chain, followed by a half double crochet. So just to reiterate, row 7, you have an increase at the beginning and another increase at the end. So let's go ahead and turn and see what you have after 7 rows. Now, by the visual nature of this, I know that I have 2 more rows to work, and then it will be time to cross this cable again. So the instructions for rows 8 and 9 are simply to work in established pattern. So what that means is just continue working. Row number 8 will be worked with front post double crochets only in the the stitches that exist. And again, this looks like I just need to do front post. Then row 9 we will do in pattern stitch, working across with the back post double crochets. And again, we're not adding any stitches on these 2 rows, so go ahead and work rows 8 and 9 in pattern stitch. This is what you should have after completing rows 8 and 9. And now we're ready to work row 10. We're going to continue in pattern stitch, which is just working these either front or back post stitches, and then working what is appropriate for the cable. Now we cross the cables last on row number 4. It is 6 rows later, it's time to cross it again on row 10. So every 6 rows you're going to be crossing these cables just like you've been doing on the back sections and the front 2 panels of this entire project. So row 10 we're going to increase on at the beginning and at the end. And then you're going to work rows 11 through 13. So that's 11, 12, 13. That's 3 additional rows, just working in pattern stitch, either front post or back post, depending on if you have the front side facing, you'll be working front post. If you have the back side facing, you'll be working the back post. And again, doing what is appropriate for what you need for this to maintain pattern stitch for this cable. The pattern just assumes that you, at this point, don't need a lot of minutia in the details on how to do that. Now, if you get a little lost in where you are, I find it much easier to count the rows from the back side of the panel, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I know that I have 9 rows. Just feeling the rows like this is also very helpful, but I find visually it's easier to count where you are from the back side rather than trying to count from the front side. So go ahead and work row 10, again increasing on both ends of the row, and then work rows 11 through 13 just in pattern stitch, maintaining the same number of stitches that you have at the end of row 10. This is what you should have after completing 13 rows. And as I said before, we cross the cables on row 10, and then 11, 12, and 13, we're merely working in pattern stitch over those existing stitches. Now, what we're going to do for rows 14, 15, and 16. Okay, for row 14, we're going to increase a stitch on each end again. So we will have, work that double crochet in the half double at the beginning, and at the turning chain, again, you're going to work a double crochet and a half double so that we have increases on both ends. And then, okay, so that is for row 14. And then for rows 15 and 16, we just simply work an established pattern stitch. And again, pay attention to the center and make sure that you are crossing that when it is time. Okay, so you should be crossing that on row 16. So go ahead and work the increased row, which is row 14, and then in pattern stitch for rows 15 and 16. This is what you should have after completing 16 rows. Now, for the repeat rows, they do say like repeat row 10 or repeat row 7, which is just another way of saying repeat an increased row. Rows 10 will have the front side facing. Row 7, which is an odd number, will have the back side facing when you read the pattern. So for row 17, it's another repeat of row 7, which means another increased row. So we're going to work an increased row followed by rows 18, 19, and 20, which would be 3 rows worked in pattern stitch. So go ahead and work that row 17 again, increasing a stitch on each side, and then work 3 rows in pattern stitch. And just as a reminder, row 16, I did cross that cable. So go ahead and work those next 4 rows. This is what you should have after completing 20 rows. Now for row 21, it's another repeat of row 7, which is another increased row. So we're going to increase a stitch. Actually, we're going to have the back side facing for row 21. So you're going to add a stitch at the beginning of the row, and make sure when you work that turning chain, you work a double crochet and a half double crochet in the turning chain. And then you're going to work rows 22 and 23 in established pattern across. So go ahead and work those 3 rows, an increased row, followed by 2 more rows worked in pattern stitch. And let's look at the front again. So we are going to cross the cables on row 22 in our cable. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. This is what you should have after completing 23 rows. Now for row 24, we're going to work another increased row, increasing on both sides at the beginning and the end of the row, just like we've been doing. And then work rows 25, 26, and 27 in established pattern. So that's an additional 4 rows, an increased row followed by 3 rows in pattern stitch. So go ahead and work those rows. This is what you should have after completing 27 rows. For row 28, we're going to work another increased row, increasing on both the beginning and at the end of the row, and then work rows 29 and 30, which are simply worked in pattern stitch. This is what you should have after completing 30 rows. And I should have mentioned earlier, you should have crossed the cables back on row 28. All right, so now for rows 31, we will turn with the back side facing, and we have another increased row, which is a repeat of row 7. So we're going to increase at the beginning and at the end of the row. And after that, we're going to work rows 32, 33, and 34. That's an additional 3 rows in pattern stitch. So go ahead and work that row 31, which is an increase, and then rows 32 through 34 in pattern stitch. This is what you should have after completing 34 rows. So you can see how this is growing, and the number of stitches is increasing on each side of the cable. And you can check your written pattern for the exact number of stitches rather than rattling off many different numbers. That can be very confusing very quickly. Okay, so now for row 35, we're going to turn, and we're going to work another increased row, increase 1 stitch here, and again, when you get to the turning chain, we increase the stitch here by working a double crochet and a half double in that turning chain. After that, we're going to work rows 36 and 37, which is just worked in established pattern stitch. So work those next 3 rows, an increased row followed by 2 rows worked in pattern stitch. This is what you should have after completing 37 rows. Now for row 48, it's another increased row where we increase on each side at the beginning and at the end of the row. And then rows 39 through 41, we're going to work in established pattern stitch. So that's 38, 39, 40, and 41. That's 4 more rows. Go ahead. Again, an increase followed by 3 rows in pattern stitch. This is what you should have after completing 41 rows. Now, when you look at the pattern on page 81, you're going to see that we have 1 more row to work. We're going to work row 42, which is going to be another increased row. We'll increase a stitch here and a stitch at the end by working the double crochet and the half double in the turning chain. So I want you to complete row 42, and then after that, depending on the size that you are making, you'll see where it says sizes extra small, small, and medium only. You're going to skip the remaining rows. In other words, there aren't going to be any more rows for the sleeve itself, and you will go to the sleeve cap. You'll start working on that. Now for sizes large, extra large, 2X, and 3X, you're going to work rows 43 and 44, which is just working in pattern stitch. Okay, so in other words, if you're working the large with me, you're going to have the increased row here for row 42, and then you're going to work 2 additional rows of pattern stitch. If you're making the 2X and the 3X sizes, you have 2 additional rows on top of that, so you'll go through row 46 if you're working rows 2X and 3X. I know that's a lot of information I just threw at you, which is why it's so important that you work from a written pattern so that you have what you need. So go ahead and work those rows, and again for the large size we're going to do an increase row, row 42, and then we're going to work rows 43 and 44 in pattern stitch. So work those 3 rows. This is what you should have after completing those 44 rows of the sleeve. Okay, now we're going to look on down on page 81. We're going to go to the sleeve cap. We're going to turn, and the first thing we're going to do, we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip the first stitch, and then in the next 3 stitches we're going to work slip stitches. 1, 2, and 3. After that, we're going to work half double crochet 2 stitches together over the next 2 stitches. So you're basically converting 2 stitches into 1, and we're going to do it like this. Wrap, insert the hook, pull up a loop, wrap the hook, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 5 loops on the hook, and there you have your decrease. Okay, now we're going to work in pattern stitch across the row until we get to the last 5 stitches. Okay, I've worked across until there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches left. I'm not including the turning chain in this. And working through the top loops, I'm going to work the half double crochet over 2 stitches just like this, yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over in the next stitch, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 5 loops on the hook, and leave the remaining 3 stitches unworked. Okay, and we're going to turn. Now I'm going to show you row 2, which is what you are going to repeat basically until we complete the cap. We're going to chain 1 only, and then we're going to half double crochet the next 2 stitches together like this, again wrapping it, insert into that first stitch, which is the half double crochet decrease, wrap again and into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all those loops. Okay, so we're going to do that at the beginning, then we're going to work all the way across in pattern stitch, and again make sure you're paying attention to what your cable is doing. It's going to be time to cross the cables once again on this row, and then the first stitch of the row is right here where the decrease was. So the last 2 stitches we're going to work another decrease, a half double crochet 2 together, which is half double crochet decrease over these 2 stitches, and therefore are thereby decreasing a stitch on each end. Okay, so we're going to work that. That would be row 2 of the sleeve cap. Now rows 3 through 14 are going to be a repeat of the same row 2. So what we're going to do now is work rows 2 through 14, again decreasing with the half double crochet 2 together on both ends of the row, decreasing a stitch, and that's going to give you the sleeve cap. So I'm going to go ahead and work those rows, and then I'll show you where to go from there. This is what you should have after completing those 14 rows of the sleeve cap. Okay, now for the last 2 rows for the large, if you look down towards the bottom of page 81 where it says sizes L, XL, 2X, 3X only. In other words, if you're making an extra small, small, or medium, you would fasten off at this point. But if you're making the large like we are now, we're going to repeat that row 2 times more. Okay, so I'm going to have a total of 16 rows, just again repeating the decrease on both sides. All right, now if you're making the 2X and 3X sizes, you will have an additional 2 rows in addition to that, so you will have a total of 18 rows working the decreases over the sleeve cap. So I'm going to go ahead and work the last 2 rows, and then I'll show you what I have. At the end of row 16, we're just going to fasten off. Go ahead and cut a generous strand for weaving in the loose ends. Okay, let's take a look at our completed sleeve with the sleeve cap. Okay, so make sure that you complete 2 of these, and they should be exact. One thing let me say about this cable, especially if you're working on other sizes, and if you find that the last row happens to be a cable crossing, you can choose to either cross that cable or to just let it be elongated. It's really up to you. Now I have some suggestions when sewing your pieces together. If you prefer to block the pieces into shape, you may do that if you wish, but let me show you how you're going to sew these together. You can either choose to sew with a yarn needle and with thread, with sewing thread, or you can use the slip stitch and slip stitch your parts together. Okay, so I'm going to show you here. We have the back side, and you know that it's the back because you have 2 of the arm hole shaping. Okay, and this is the front large panel. So when you connect these, you're going to put the front side of both of them together. So you're going to have the back sides facing outward. And when you connect these, we are going to connect 3 cables wide on both sides. 1, 2, 3. And you're going to want to line these up very carefully, stitch by stitch, if you can. Okay, or do the best that you can. So you're going to do that for the front panel. And That's the wide panel. And then for the smaller thin panel, we also put the front side facing, and we're going to connect it up on this other side. Now let's talk a little bit about the arms. Okay, after you connect the top seams, then we are going to attach the arm cap, the sleeve cap, to this part of the sweater. I'm going to give a simple demonstration as to how you can connect these top shoulder seams. Okay, so I'm going to find the stitches very carefully that I'm going to slip stitch together. Again, like I said, we're going to work this 3 cables wide. So I have my slip knot ready to go. I'm going to pull that through and get that loose strand out of the way, and I'm going to give it a chain, and I'm going to give it a nice little tug just to make sure that that is anchored. And then as I go across, I'm going to work through both remaining chains of both panels, slip, stitch. Now you want to make sure this is not too tight and not too loose, because if it's too loose, the seam will not be very secure, but if it's too tight, you're going to end up pulling the fabric inward. So you want to be careful to have a nice controlled tension as you go across. And as you can see, I'm being very careful and deliberate to line each of these stitches up as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and work across, and then I will show you once I finish this seam. So after working this seam, and I'll show you once I turn it over that it is 3 cables wide. I'm going to go ahead and give this, I'm going to actually chain double on this one, and I'm going to cut a nice long strand for hiding into the work once we get to that point. And let me go ahead and show you that the seam is 3 cables wide. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So you're going to also need to attach the narrow panel on the other side in the like manner. And then I want to show you how you can connect in the arm. Okay, so now let's take a look at the seam that we just completed, which is right here. This is the top shoulder seam. And you see these 2 panels, how you have the armhole shaping here. Okay, so this is what I highly recommend. Before you sew any other seam, we need to work in this sleeve right here. And this is the cap that you worked last. And this is the cable that we are going to center. The half double crochet, we're going to center that stitch onto the seam that we just completed here. So this is where you need to get a lot of pins or what I like to call knit clips, which are plastic clips, to kind of put this into place before we begin sewing, because it's not going to be a stitch by stitch lineup like we just did to the shoulder seam. This is going to be a lot of what we call easing fabric in. So we would pin this part here, and the other pieces that should line up would be the shaping for the arm right here. And once you see that, you see that you have 2 lines here. So what we're going to do is we're going to ease this in very carefully, and we will slip stitch this together. I'm not going to do this for you stitch by stitch because that would just take too long, and I think you can handle this. But just make sure that you center this cable right here onto the seam first off, and then anchor the arm shaping here and the arm shaping on the other side over here, okay? And then you just want to be very even as you connect these pieces around the arm, okay? So it's going to, the shaping will go up and over, but again, make sure that you pin this into place, and then you can connect it very, very evenly. You can slip stitch it, or you can use the whip stitch, okay? So once you complete the arm shaping into this, then at that point, we're going to then work the side seam. At that point, you will connect the side seams by lining up the sides. These should line up row by row along the side, and then the arm also, it will be closed, and you can it will be closed like this, and you can stitch row by row with the slip stitches or whip stitch, or however you would like on that. And then of course we would turn it right side out. Once we do that, then we will work on the finishing touches, which is going to be including hiding all our loose strands, and then making the beaded collar trim. Now the last thing we need to do is work the beaded trim that's going to go on the collar of our project. I'm going to show you just two different styles of beading needles you can use. You can use anything that you have, and the main thing is that it will go through the center of the beads. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one and just show you how easy it is to put the yarn through this beading needle. You have to be careful with these that you don't break them by pulling them apart. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that yarn through there. And I have counted out in the ballpark of about 40 beads. Now, depending on the size that you're making, you may need fewer beads, but you shouldn't need too many more than 40. So it's always good to load more beads that you need than you're going to need, so that you don't have to stop and do this again. Okay, so I'm going to just load 40 beads, and I'll just show you how easily they load onto the yarn, just like that. They do have tools available where you can load as you go, but I kind of prefer to use this method for this particular design, especially since the yarn that I chose is strong enough to handle the preloading of the beads, and it just makes working with these so much easier as we go, especially since the item that we're going to be making is very small. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and load my beads onto the yarn, and then we'll begin our crocheting. Now that we have all the beads loaded onto the yarn, and what will happen is we will just slide these gently down the line as we use up our yarn. Okay, and I am also using the smaller crochet hook. This is the size E, or 4 or 3.50 millimeter crochet hook. If you don't have this, you can maybe even try a size F. It really does not matter too much, because we're going to make this this trim just as long as we need it, okay? And you can also take a quick measurement of the front large panel until where it connects into the arm, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so we're going to start with a slip knot and a starting chain of 8. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and slide these beads down just a little bit. Now we're going to work a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. A double crochet. Now the next stitch, we're actually going to work in a purl. actually the next 2 stitches. And let me show you how we're going to do this. It's not as complicated as it may sound. We're going to wrap our hook, insert into the next chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We're going to slide this bead into place, yarn over, and pull through 2. And the bead is going to pop from the back side. This is actually the back side of the stitches that we're looking at right now. Okay, and so we're going to get another purl ready. We're going to do this again. Yarn over, insert, pull up a loop. There are 3 loops on the hook. Pull through 2, slide the purl into place, yarn over, and pull through 2. So now we have 2 purls, and we're only going to work 2 per row. Double crochet in the next space. I'm going to slide these purls down because we're not going to need them for a few stitches, and then a half double crochet worked into the last stitch. So row 1 is done, and make sure that the beads are popping onto the back side, not to the front side. Okay, so after the chain 2, we're going to skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work front post treble around the next stitch. Now this has the bead. Make sure that you work this carefully so that the bead stays on the front side, and just work behind where that bead is. Pull those beads down, and then we're going to work another front post treble crochet. This is the 4-post cable, in case those of you who are familiar with that from following my channel. Now working in front of these 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 2nd and then in the 3rd stitches that we skipped. So come all the way over here and front post treble here, and now this one is going to go around the bead. See how I'm putting my hook, and I'm keeping my yarn back behind that purl. After that, we're going to work a double crochet into the turning chain. Let me speak to you about that for just a minute. At the end of the rows, using the crossed trebles, we're going to work a double crochet in that last stitch. In the rows where the back side is facing, which is the row we're going to work next, we're going to work a half double crochet into the turning chain. So let's go ahead and work row 3, which is pretty much like row 2, but it's going to look a little different because we have some fabric to work in now. So we chain 2. I'm going to skip the first stitch, and we're just going to work back post double crochet in that first stitch. Now we're going to get a bead handy because we're going to work a bead into the next stitch. So let's have that handy. Yarn over, work a back post double crochet, or the beginnings of one, yarn over, pull through 2, slide the bead into position, and pull the rest of the way through. Now the next one, we're going to do the same thing. This is the 3rd stitch. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We're going to slide a bead into place, and we complete the stitch, and then a back post double crochet followed by a half double worked right into the entire turning chain. Okay, so let's turn, and now we have 2 sets of beads. Isn't that lovely? Okay, again, pulling more on the strand, chain 2, get the hook ready for the treble crochet. This is row 4, which is really a repeat of row 2. So what we're going to do is just repeat these 2 rows until this is long enough to cover the collar portion in the front, and I'll show that to you in just a second. So we're going to skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3 stitches, and the 4th, which is the 2nd beaded stitch, front post treble, being careful to work behind that bead, and then do that in the next stitch as well. Now working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the stitch here, and then in the one with the bead. So front post treble, and then the next one goes around that beaded stitch. And again, be careful that you work behind the bead. It's really hard to work in front of the bead, so hopefully that will be okay for you. And then in the turning chain, work a double crochet. I'm going to do this once more, working both of these rows. Okay, I'm going to turn. We're always chaining 2. And then back post double crochet straight across. That's the first one. And then the second one is where we add the bead. Complete the first part of that. Slide a bead into place. And then the next stitch, we also are going to slide a bead. Complete the first half. Slide that bead into place. And there you go. And then the next stitch, another back post double crochet, and then a half double crochet to end the row. Let's turn. And now we have 3 sets of beads. So just continue this until this piece measures the collar portion. Let me show you that right now. So here is the front of the sweater. This is where the small front section was attached, and this is the shoulder, and this is the large portion. So what you're going to do is you're going to make this beaded section from here all the way to the ending point here, and we're just going to sew this on to this portion. Okay, so depending on how large this is will determine how long you're going to make this beaded portion. So I'm going to go ahead and complete mine, and then I'll show you what the next step is going to be. Now that I've completed the length that I need to cover that large front panel, I'm going to work one more finishing row, which is just simply going to be a row of front post double crochets. I'm going to chain 2, skip that first stitch, and front post double crochets in each stitch, just being careful to work around those pearls. Make sure that you put these strands in the back of the pearl. And a half double crochet worked into that turning chain, and let's go ahead and give it a chain. After that, we're going to clip a nice long strand so that we can weave this into our work. So let me show you where you're going to sew this on. So again, this is the right shoulder seam, and this is the remainder of that front large panel. And so we are simply going to put this on just like this, and what I would recommend that you do is pin this into place and then sew this on using a similar color sewing thread, or you could even try using the yarn, as long as you're very careful to hide the stitches, but being the similar color or same color yarn as the stitches, it should not be a problem. So go ahead and sew this portion on to that large panel evenly, and then hide all your loose strands, and you will be all set. I hope you enjoyed making the Binne cardigan with me today. If you did, I would love to hear from you. Please feel free to comment in the comment section below. God bless. Bye-bye.